Veganism has grown by 40% in the last couple of years. In 2019, even The Economist declared it the year of the vegan. Veganism is big business. And that's why we sat down with JP from Allplants on my podcast, Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. JP founded Allplants alongside his brother to target the flexitarian eater as veganism continues to increase. They've raised £40 million from people who've backed the likes of Cazoo, Trustpilot and Revolut. It's a fascinating conversation looking at the way that we eat food and the way that that is changing in a convenience-driven economy. We talk about JP's family history and what led him to becoming an entrepreneur. And he spoke about how he took a year out to find his true calling. JP, welcome to Jimmy's Jobs of the Future.
Thanks. Can't wait to crack on with this. This has been a long time coming, Jimmy.
Yeah, this has been a long time in the oven, this one.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. Tell us about your first job and what did it entail?
Gosh. Okay. So I had the great pleasure of, as my father's an accountant, he wrote me in from the age of about 13 for summer jobs, doing sundry expenses in handwritten, these massive ledger books. They were like A1, where I had to write up all of these clients' expenses with rulers and pencils and what have you. It was so much fun. It taught me all about how much I would definitely love not to be an accountant for the rest of my life. So, but what it did certainly give me the chance to do is experience the professional world as a little kid and get some pocket money. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise.
What impact do you think it had on your kind of working career? Because it's quite a way to go from that to what Allplants is today.
Yeah, well, I guess what that turned into was a couple of summers doing that, and then my father, classic kind of immigrant, moved over from Cyprus when my family became refugees in 1974, and went down the safe professional route of becoming an accountant and wanted all of his children to do the same. And so I kind of got convinced and wedged into trying all of these things and worked at Bank of Cyprus for a couple of summers after that, riveting stuff, counting checks by hand. I then thought I'd escape from it to do something interesting, which was going to be law. So I did a gap year of paralegaling. Blimey, that was a quick education in the fact that I definitely wasn't going to do a career as a lawyer either. And so for me, to be honest, I think the thing that all of these early opportunities gave me was just to realize that these weren't avenues that I wanted to go down. Not that I had a clue what I did want to do, but I'd at least got the chance to eliminate a few before graduating, which was lucky.
Did you have a dream job growing up that you really wanted to do?
Obviously, I wanted to be a professional footballer, professional rugby player. I mean, it's a massive cliche, but I certainly had absolutely no talent in that department. To be honest, I also got lucky because I had quite a few friends in slightly swankier universities. I studied at Nottingham, had a fantastic time, really enjoyed it. But we were really at our uni getting events from the big four accounting companies, a couple of other major multinationals, and that was about it. The careers department didn't really know what to do with all of us. But then, I had friends at Oxford or Cambridge or LSE, and they were being interviewed by these fascinating companies and doing internships at places like McKinsey and Bain. And that's how I learned about that world and decided actually after uni not to take a job and to instead go full-time on trying to get into one of those companies, which, it genuinely was a full-time endeavor for 4 or 5 months. But eventually, from applying to every single company under the sun, managed to break my way in, which was really lucky.
So that's quite interesting though, because that is, I often talk about, trying to find a job or a new job is a job in itself. So you actually took time off post-university to do that, because I do think, we do put quite a lot of pressure on final year graduates in terms of
totally
get them to do the the exams and all that, and try and find their dream career as well. Yeah, it's quite a lot to pack into a third year.
It's massive amounts to pack in. And I did one of those banking internships in the second year, which the brilliant thing about that was the ludicrous amount they were paying interns per week. But other than that, again, I was pretty certain I didn't want to go into investment banking. And so having tried all these things, all I knew was what I didn't want to do. And I really felt like just going into something for the sake of it was you immediately set yourself down a path. And if you know in your kind of heart and soul that it's not the thing, then you're not going to give it your all, and you're certainly not going to be successful at it. And so, and I was really enjoying my degree at the same time. And so I kind of decided to go all in on that and see if I could, I guess when you're for me, being at Nottingham University, I felt quite conscious of the fact that you had to kind of set yourself apart. And so I really wanted, if it was remotely possible, to see if I could land a grade that did set me apart, which was very much an all-out endeavor for the third year. And I couldn't I didn't have any space or time to even work out what I might want to do, leave alone do the really hard work of all these assessment centers and what have you. So yeah, went all in on that, and then and got really lucky. I mean, I absolutely scraped over. I think I got like something like a 69.8%, which they rounded up to 70 and gave me like.
That's exactly my case as well.
Yeah, and I'll bloody take it. That's all that matters, and so I got really lucky there, and then and I just felt there was something really interesting I'd been hearing about from some friends about this consulting thing, but I knew nothing about it. So I tried to get some temp jobs in that space, couldn't get any, and then genuinely, there were about, at the time, 40 management consulting companies in London, some literally 20-person shops, and then some places like Accenture with 5,000 to 10,000 people. I applied to every single one of them, and the thing that really helped with is that actually, and I'm a great believer in this, that when it comes to interviewing, there's a real method, and practice makes perfect. And so, and also it's just a numbers game. You have to play the game at a sufficiently broad level to get through the many steps of the funnel. And so, through doing that, and through basically, a crash course in all of these case study interviews and how to survive them. And I got plenty wrong that I crashed and burned from, including some final stage assessment centers as well. Ended up managing to get a couple of offers, and that was really, really lucky. And it meant then had a second half of the year where I knew, this is one of the greatest moments in life, isn't it? When you have a job, but you're not starting immediately. And I actually, whenever we're hiring as well, I always encourage people to, if you've actually got a shorter notice, take a month and give yourself, I mean, what a privilege to have time where you can really relax and switch off. And so I got that then in that second 6 months, and I went and lived in Cyprus actually for another stint, because I just really wanted to spend more time with family and see if I could get myself to full fluency, which got close, but I'm saying I didn't quite master it, but it was a lot of fun.
Sort of another question about growing up. You run a food business, Allplants, and what did the family meal consist of when growing up?
Well, we were so classic. I think my mum was the master of the kitchen, and evening meals were her domain. And I think we had around 5 different things we ate, 4 nights of the week, every week. So it cycled through lasagna, which I'm obsessed with my mother's lasagna. And with her, we've re-architected the bechamel and the ragu, right? So there's now a blonde-based delight, but it was very much beef and lamb mince and all the cream and eggs you can imagine. But lasagna, spag bowl, the one thing that she used and didn't make from scratch was chicken Kievs. I don't know why, but we had Kievs and mash and green beans. And, we had these few recipes that we basically had every evening. I've got 2 siblings, and so there's 3 of us. And actually, because one of the nice things about for my dad being an accountant is he was pretty much able to get home every evening by kind of 7, half 7, and so we have family dinner. And for me, I think maybe it's just a Cypriot thing as well, but eating together and sharing food has always been a really big part of my upbringing. And, food is really at the heart of life in Cyprus. You can't throw an event without massive mezelas spreading and everyone dipping in to grab everything they can, because that's part of the game. Fill your plate as fast as you can. And so yeah, food's always been a big part of life. And as a massive foodie, but someone who ate all of the meat, fish, dairy, etc., it's quite an adventure when I started, dabbling, let's say, with the idea of trying to eat more plants.
And so talk us to that. I mean, one of the questions we ask is, how did you come up with a name for your company? I think allplants pretty much kind of like explains it to an absolute T. So like, well done on that. But talk us through the journey of starting it, because you started it with one of your brothers as well, right?
That's right. Well, by the way, I'll come back to it. But the name may sound clever, but there's a lot of luck in that as well. It was, to be honest, I just slapped it on as a project name so as not to be distracted by how do we brand this, because I put my hand up and admit I don't know the first thing about branding whatsoever. It's not my strong suit, and so I always otherwise get distracted playing with names, and I know that I'm never going to end up with the right thing. And all plants was just, with a space in it in the beginning, was just it kind of summed up the project, and so is what we called it. And we went off and did I had so many friends who were like ad agencies and the creatives and brand strategies, and we went through thousands of names, and fortunately none of them convinced us or stuck. And then we were just like, you know what, this project name, it could work. Checked if there was a URL available. There was, but it ended up taking me 6 months to try to get it for an amount we could afford, which at the time, because we didn't have any money, we couldn't really afford anything. So I think it was a low 4-figure sum, but it felt like an absolute enormous amount to spend. And then we said, okay, well, if we can get that, then it makes sense. But going back to it, the honest summary is that at the very beginning, I was a very, very reluctant veggie at home. My girlfriend at the time had around the time I met her, had started going veggie, and I was like, well, you've got such morals, and I could never do this, but the fact that you actually got something you believe in and you're changing what you do to support that, wow. And I was like, I'm not going to change how I eat, but isn't that impressive? And by the way, let's live together. And yeah, I'm happy to be veggie at home, because I basically just really, really wanted to get in there. And I thought that was a way to convince that I was the right kind of person to be with it. And carried on eating all the steaks, burgers, etc., because I thought, that was my normal thing. And it wasn't until years later, after which, by the way, I'd also, this is so embarrassing, Delphi had turned around to me back in, this is 2014, and said, I think I might actually start eating this, fully vegan, and at least trying it out, because it just feels right. It's what I want to do. And honestly, Jimmy, I turned around to her and I said, look, you can't do this to me. I'm already having to drink this weird milk, and I can't eat what I want to eat at home. Like, this is just too much. This is selfish. I genuinely said that, which she still winds me up about today, because about 12 months later, I then watched a bunch of documentaries in the space of a week and came out convinced as anything that, quite frankly, this is the future of the planet, and it has to be. Unfortunately, there really doesn't seem to be a way through where, even if we completely transform our energy sector, our transport sector, our construction sector, many of the other big contributors, but food is 30 to 35% of greenhouse gas emissions, not to mention the havoc and destruction it creates on land, water, and the destruction of biodiversity. That's food and agriculture. And the thing is that animal ag represents 85% of that impact, but only 15% of the calories. So animal agriculture has an enormous outsized impact on our planet. And it's quite obvious that unless we find a way to drastically reduce our reliance on it for nutrition, if not ideally completely remove it from our whole ecosystem and the way that we eat, then we're on a fast track to nowhere in terms of averting the climate crisis. And having realized that, I felt like a bit of a hypocrite, to be honest, and so started trying to try out this diet.
I do think, share anecdotal stuff, but it is quite interesting that a lot of my wife's friends, those that have gone veggie or vegan,
Yeah.
cite climate over animal welfare, actually, which is a real kind of change from sort of when we were growing up, when people were veggie, like it was mainly an animal welfare point. And obviously that still ranks in people's things, but I often find it just one of those interesting subtle shifts that's happened over in the 21st century.
It's definitely a shift. And what I just described is my personal journey. Obviously, the funny thing is that prior to my mind being suddenly expanded and falling down this rabbit hole about the kind of planet and environmental imperative, I was already, one of my previous startups was in the health and wellness space. And, I knew that what you eat is important, but I'd never truly engaged with and understood the incredible wellness medicine that is a plant-based diet. And now I fully understand that, but I kind of had the blinkers on and I just hadn't engaged with it. Likewise, I'd seen all sorts of, really horrendous clips from factory farms and read about what happens in those environments. But it's just for different people, there's different things that are the trigger that make you actually listen in and engage. And for me, it was climate. And for many other people, there's so many different mainstream movements now of awareness and that are bringing people to the notion of just giving plants a go and trying to eat a little bit more. And that's cool. It doesn't really matter where you're coming at it from. It's the beauty of it actually is that it has so many ways that it is actually very positive for people, planet, and for yourself too.
This show is made possible by the fantastic support of our various partners, and I wanted to thank the Octopus Group. The Octopus Group is a collection of 8 entrepreneurially minded businesses across financial services and energy, all founded on the one simple belief that people and the planet deserve better. They are intent on building a better tomorrow for future generations and are a certified B Corp, demonstrating they care as much about the impact of their investments as the returns they generate. I am proud that Octopus have backed this show since the second series, and they are the reason why we are now able to put such a professional show together. To hear more about what they do, it is worth checking out previous episodes with the founders Chris Hewlett and Simon Rogerson, or the CEO of their investments arm, Ruth Hancock. If you want to see how you could partner with us, go to our website at www.jobsofthefuture.co. And how did you design the first product? Tell us about that.
The whole reason I started cooking, literally cooking the idea of All Plants Up, and with the idea, it was very immediately about the food, was because I had, for about 6 months, having made that discovery and started trying to eat this way, I'd become pretty convinced that this was the future for me. I was like, cool. And that was as far as it went. And to be honest, at the time, I was working on a bunch of different other ideas that I thought could be really valuable and impactful for the world. And then gradually, as I started to become busier and busier again, because when you've got time and if you enjoy cooking and you don't mind getting it wrong to get it right, it's actually really fun. It's like an adventure. It's a hobby. You're remixing all these recipes that you grew up on, trying to recreate those flavors. As soon as you're busy, it was driving me nuts. And back in 2015, I was having to skip meals multiple times a week because I just couldn't find something. And I don't operate well when I haven't eaten. I get beyond hangry and pretty useless. And so that wasn't working for me. And I guess it started to realize that, hang on a second, this isn't working for me. And I'm so fired up about this, that this is the right thing. And I'm already starting to find it difficult. How on earth are we going to take everyone from early adopters through the mass parts of the adoption curve into this new lifestyle? It's never going to happen. It's far, far, far too hard. And it's far too steeped in these expectations that it's just not delicious. And it's also not healthy. A lot of the perspectives on if you're vegan and veggies, you're going to be malnutrition, you're not going to get enough protein or iron or omega-3s. There's all sorts of myths that need to be busted because they're not actually real. And so, became pretty compelled that actually what I was finding was everyone wanted to talk to me about it because they thought I'd gone completely like a through a loop and become a mad hippie by changing how I ate. And so everyone's like, well, hang on, this isn't for real. Surely you're gonna give up in a few months. But what I found was, yes, you could obviously, you're gonna chat with your friends about this or family. But as soon as they start saying, well, what about this? What about that? It doesn't matter how convincing your science is or your logic, or even the videos you can show people about, your health or what happens in a factory farm, because it's not a rational decision. When it comes to food, it's instinctive, it's pleasure driven. And what I found was, if I literally just slide across the table a really delicious lasagna, for example, that is way more convincing than anything I can say to you. Way more convincing. You say, oh, actually, hang on a sec, this is delicious. I could happily eat this once a week. Yeah, cool, no problem. And so I was doing that, for fun with friends, and then started to suddenly realize, and this is with my brother Alex, we were just like, hang on a second, this is what we need to be doing. We need to find a way to make plant-based food unbelievably, irresistibly delicious and easy and available for everyone. And if we do that, half the battle at least is won, because suddenly you remove all the barriers and you make this whole kind of journey into trying it out so much more friction-free and delightful. So yes, I got cooking. And how did I make the first dish? Well, the thing I first became obsessed with was convincing my yaya, which is my Cypriot grandmother, who is a very, very tough customer when it comes to food, because she has always been giving love with food, right? So she has all of these recipes that she's cooked for us for many years, feeding all the family. I wanted to make a moussaka. And moussaka is like a Greek lasagna, kind of, obviously a few tweaks. I wanted to make a moussaka that she literally couldn't tell was plant-based. And that took a good 3 or 4 months. I'm literally just cooking and trying it and cooking and trying it. And then while doing that, started to realize, okay, we need more than just a moussaka. And then started kind of messing around with other dishes that I thought would be at the right point of kind of triggering people's interest, but then being able to really deliver on the flavoring. A couple of those dishes actually that are still very much on the menu today. One was a mac and cheese, just making that like beautiful, like cheesy, unctuous experience, but making it not just plant-based, but really, really healthy. Because if you ever had a mac and cheese, whether it's takeout or a ready meal, I mean, it's so unhealthy, full of artificial ingredients, so processed. And we wanted to make it all from natural, plant-based ingredients and whole foods. So made that, and then ended up making the first 6 dishes. And basically for about 3 or 4 months, ran a supper club every Tuesday night. Because I ran out of family and friends. They all got a bit annoyed with me, and needed to start testing it with real normal people off the streets. And so that's what got us going. And
amazing.
And yeah.
And so doing the supper club led to you kind of deciding to go full time on it with your brother. What's it been like working with your brother, and how do you work out who's got the best skill sets at things?
Oh, fortunately, that was all very straightforward from the start, because as I mentioned earlier, I have, I've got great appreciation for things that are creative, including design and brand and storytelling and all of the words that represent our brand. But Alex is a real beast at that, and always has been. He's actually a really talented musician and artist. And so it was a really nice and natural fit for us, for Al to focus on those more creative areas, and for me to focus on the things that I have done in the ventures I built before, which, playing the role of both the kind of digital and product lead, I guess the CEO and CFO stuff, like the financing, the strategy stuff, with a background from that kind of McKinsey world. It's been drilled into me. So that's the thing that comes naturally to me. And so, look, we had a fantastic time. In the first 2 or 3 years, getting all plants off the ground was wild. And we were bootstrapped to the max. And so we had to make things happen from nothing and really do it on a shoestring. And so that breeds a lot of creativity and means that you're, especially when you're having to build kitchens on a small budget, it keeps you on your toes. So our first kitchen we built in a very small warehouse. We then actually, started growing very fast, and so in the space of the first couple of years, we ended up across 14 units in South Tottenham, which we linked together, but were formed our overall kind of kitchen and supply setup, which was madness, but a lot of fun.
You've just raised a huge chunk of cash to kind of really roll out expansion, exporting, and so on. How have want to hear much longer term plans and what they entail, but also investing in family businesses is often seen as a risk by investors. That attitude must have changed since you first raised seed capital.
So a few things that are quite unique about allplants, and I guess that we've been deliberate about. The first is that we deliberately from the very start didn't want to just be any normal business for a number of reasons. But when I say that, I mean from the perspective of what a business is, which is all about making returns for shareholders and focusing on profitability, and that's about it. And so from day one, I was trying to find a new model, and I discovered the B Corp model, and we wrote that into our articles of association pretty much before we did anything. And that has been a really important filter for finding the right investors, those who understand that by becoming part of the allplants journey, you're taking responsibility to always look at a triple bottom line where people, planet, and profit are all pursued in an equal manner. So that's one thing. Second thing is that yes, there's often novel relationships that come before co-founders. You get husband and wives, you get ex-colleagues, you sometimes get siblings, as with Alex and I. And we try to bring the good side of family values into allplants, but we're really building allplants as a B Corp on a massive venture mission. And so, the whole way we go about executing that and our kind of venture-driven approach to setting out our goals and our vision, and also pursuing that in a very agile and iterative way, and really hiring incredible people who are just so fantastic to work with, and who autonomously can go after, independently making those things happen is what it's all about. And so, I've had the great privilege to live through many phases of allplants development as a venture and my previous developments. I have to say, I feel very lucky because I've never worked on something with timing like this. People always say timing is such an important factor when you're building something, and it's often something you don't have control over. This is still the very outset and the very beginning of this global transformation of food and agriculture as we know it. But what you can almost certainly say is that in a few decades forward, we are going to see a vastly more plant-based global food system. And that's already creating opportunities for the brands of the future. And, there's a few categories where we've seen that in some of the meat analogs and milk analogs with, Oatly or Beyond Meat. But there's so many other aspects of food that are yet to be taken to that level and beyond. And, we really feel very excited about the opportunities to have a massive impact and very positively on our planet. And at the same time, build a really enduring and purposeful brand in allplants, and really set out to rebrand the V word, which is one of the most important things, and make it so much more approachable and welcoming and inclusive for everyone, and make it something you can incorporate in any lifestyle, not that you have to be an all-in hardcore vegan, which obviously used to be the only way to kind of eat this way, but also that we can make this something that's just so unbelievably delicious that it is for everyone. And it's not something where you have to actually be willing to live like a monk and have to compromise on what you actually want from food, which is something tasty. I'm certainly no monk, Jimmy. I don't know about you, but my patience would be worn thin if I was having to just eat lentils and carrots. It just doesn't excite me. But the exciting thing is that you can really create incredible food, and it's all from whole food, natural, plant-based ingredients.
And what are your favorite ones to recommend to people, right? If people are listening to this and they haven't tried one before and they'll think, well, actually, I'm going to go on and give it a go because they are delicious, right? What's the best seller?
Well, it very much depends what you're into. So that today we have over 150 dishes. We're always launching new seasonal dishes, and we've got new drops coming in a couple of weeks. And so that kind of living, breathing kitchen, because our chefs are hand cooking food on a daily basis and getting it out, to families all over the country. So it depends what mood you're in. I mean, honestly, if you're looking for something to sub your kind of Friday night takeout with, our spicy Szechuan noodle is an absolute banger. The spice in it is drop dead, but the flavor is ridiculous. And again, like if you got that as a takeout with Deliveroo, it would be tasty. But my gosh, it would be full of so much salt, sugar, and bad stuff. You'd feel pretty crappy afterwards. Spicy Szechuan, you feel like a hero afterwards. So we've got a whole range of dishes that serve that like kind of Friday night naughty meal. But a lot of people are using us at lunch now as well. And so right now, my favorite lunch is our Tex-Mex rice bowl, which brings that kind of, for me, that classic Mexico City, sitting down at the table and kind of trying a bit of everything into one Buddha bowl that you can just really enjoy at lunch in one of those quick 5 minutes that you grab between things.
And we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I'd love to do this in person again one day. But is there a piece of content that's particularly inspired you on your journey, or a book? We originally asked for books, but so many people have kind of said podcasts and YouTube videos lately. Is there a couple of things you'd recommend?
I certainly find when it comes to podcasts and videos, and that I really, really appreciate listening to the stories of other startup journey founders. It just often it's a helpful reminder that we're all making it up. We're all trying to survive the inevitable roller coaster that we're on. And then sometimes, picking up from that some really, really amazing ways that, other business builders have found to craft culture, or to really listen into customer and completely pivot the product or the entire business to that. So I find that really powerful and inspiring. And yeah, I mean, books, don't get me started. There's endless books. So I'll have you here till the cows come home, Jimmy. But hopefully that
a very appropriate way to finish.
They're coming home. They're coming home.
JP, thanks so much. It's been such a brilliant episode. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, Jimmy. Really good to chat. And can't wait to have you in person and obviously serve you up some of the latest.
Some allplants.
Exactly. The latest creations from our kitchen.
Thanks for listening to Jimmy's Jobs. One of the ways that we make this show possible is by the partners that we have that support us. They can be like today's, like the Octopus Group or the FinTech Alliance, but also we've done more consumer-facing brands like Primary Bid and Beer 52. You can go to our website and check out more details at www.jobsofthefuture.co. The other way the show is made possible is by me going into organisations and talking about jobs of the future and the talent that is required to fill those jobs, how you retain them, how you attract them, and how great teams are built that can achieve superb things that we hear about on this show. If you want to know more on that, drop us a line at hello@jobsofthefuture.co. We always love hearing from our listeners,